Okay, so we are going to introduce multiplying monomials, which is our product rule. Another way to say our product rule, which we're going to refer to it as our product rule. So yesterday we did talk about simplifying monomials by adding and subtracting. That's when we look for like terms. So we're going to build on top of that and introduce the product rule. The product rule of exponents, okay, is when I have the same variable, okay, being multiplied, I'm going to first multiply the coefficients, which is the leading numbers, and then add my exponents, which is the law of exponents. So I'm going to just throw this example out there, but the basics of the rule is when you have the same variable being multiplied, I'm going to multiply the coefficients, so 2 times 4 is 8. But then I'm going to add my exponents. So 2 plus 3 is 5. So it's actually a to the 5th. And let me explain what this means. Where the product rule comes from, why I have to add the exponents instead of multiply the exponents. Because in the name it's kind of deceiving. Product rule to me means multiply the exponents. But I multiply the coefficients, add the exponents. And let me explain why. If I do a squared times a cubed, okay, a squared means a times a, right? And then a cubed means a times a times a 3 times. Well, if I look at it right here, altogether, that's 5 times. So that's where a to the 5th comes from, is adding those exponents. It's just a condensed way of writing a longer expression. So let's go over each example. Just keep in mind, I can only apply the product rule if it's the same variable, okay? So look at number 1. X squared times x cubed. Well, my product rule says I multiply my coefficients. So my coefficients here are 1 and 1, so 1 times 1 is 1. And then I add my exponents. And since x and x are the same, then all I do is add my exponents. So 2 plus 3 is 5, so x to the 5th. You're going to see this written, though, as x to the 5th instead of 1x to the 5th. Okay, number 2, multiply your coefficients. So 1 times 1 is 1. A to the 9th, and this is a to the 1st. Then if you see a variable by itself, that means the power is 1, not 0. If it was meant to be 0, then they would put a 0. So if you ever see a variable by itself, it just means to the 1 power. So I multiplied 1 times 1, and now I'm just going to add my exponents. 9 plus 1 is 10. So it's a to the 10th is my final answer. Number 3, product rule. When I see multiplication, I'm going to multiply my coefficients. So 4 times 3 is 12. And then I'm going to add my exponents. 2 plus 5 is 7, since they have the same base. Okay. Number 4, product rule, because these are being multiplied. 3 times 5 is 15. My product rule says I add my exponents, so 6 plus 2 is 8. And there's my answer. Number 5, 5 times 6 is 30. And since the product rule says I add my exponents, 2 plus 4 is 6. So let's talk about number 6. Notice this is still the product rule. Everything is being multiplied. This monomial by this monomial, okay? So I take it in baby steps. Negative 4 times 3, because I still multiply my coefficients, is negative 12. Then you're like, oh my gosh, there's all these variables and exponents. You've got to take it one variable at a time. I can only apply the product rule if they have the same base. So since I see a cubed and a squared, that's where I'm going to focus. A cubed and a squared, I add my exponents, so it's a to the 5th, because 3 plus 2 is 5. Then I look at the b. B to the 1, because whenever it's invisible, there's a 1 there. I'm going to add 1 plus 5 is 6. And there's your answer. So let's take that into consideration for the rest of this. Do not feel overwhelmed by it, because it's actually easier than you think. So product rule, because these are being multiplied. So 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. So now I'm going to start with x. X to the 4th times x to the 4th is x to the 8th, because 4 plus 4 is 8. Then y squared times y to the 9th. 2 plus 9 is 11, so y to the 11th. Okay, number 8. These are 3 terms being multiplied. So I have to multiply each of these coefficients. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 times 3 is negative 30. Okay. Then I look at my y's. Y to the 1 times y squared times y cubed. So all I do is add. 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. Number 9. I'm multiplying 3 terms. That's all this is. This times this times this. So I'm going to first multiply my coefficients. Remember, there's a 1 there. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Now I take my variables. X, so this is x to the 1 times x to the 1, so that makes 2. And then x squared, 2 plus 2 is 4. So it ends up being x to the 4th. Then y to the 1 times y to the 1 is 2, because 1 plus 1 is 2. And then 2 plus 3 is 5, y to the 5th. And that's all it is. So let's keep going. Number 10, I have 6m times 7m squared n times n to the 4th. So it's just this times this times this. So first I start with my coefficients. 6 times 7 is 42, times 1 is 42. Then just do it alphabetically. So m first. So m to the first times m squared is 3. And there's not another m, so it's just m to the 3rd. You can only include the ones where there's m's. Then n, there's no n's here, so this n to the 1st times n to the 4th is 1 plus 4 is 5. All you do is add the exponents. Number 11, 8 c squared d times 10 c cubed d to the 5th. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Everything's being multiplied, so it's our product rule. 8 times 10 is 80. Then I take one variable at a time. Let's start with c. C squared times c to the 3rd, you add 2 plus 3 is 5. Then d to the 1st times d to the 5th, 1 plus 5 is 6. That's all you do. Number 12, multiply your coefficients. So negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Then negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. Then you take your r's. R to the 1st times r to the 4th is r to the 5th, because 1 plus 4 is 5. Then you take your s. S squared times s to the 1, 2 plus 1 is 3. So s to the 3rd. Okay. Then we just start talking about mixing and matching, so it's like some fractions involved. Don't overwhelm yourself. It's the same idea. So number 13, negative 6 times a half is negative 3. Then I take my a's. A squared times a is a to the 3rd, because 2 plus 1 is 3. Then b to the 1 times b to the 1 is b squared, because 1 plus 1 is 2. Number 14, 12 times 2/3 is 8. Then x, but since there's only one x, there's nothing to add to it, so it's just x to the 1, or just x. And then y to the 1 times y to the 4th, 1 plus 4 is 5, so y to the 5th. 15, 1/4 times 8 is 2. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Then m to the 1 times m squared, 1 plus 2 is 3. Then n to the 1 times n squared, 1 plus 2 is also 3. So there you go. Then, so that's just the product rule. This is just the product rule by itself. But then we talk about combining that with what we did the day before, which is combining like terms, okay? Simplifying it. Okay, so look at number 16. I have these two being multiplied plus these two being multiplied. So this is two product rules and then addition. So we have to follow an order of operations, which means we take care of any product rule first. So I'm going to take care of this side first, okay? 2 times 4 is 8. Then I take my x to the 5th times x is x to the 6th. And then y squared times y to the 3rd is y to the 5th, because 2 plus 3. Then I'm going to add that to what I get for the right side. So again, I'm just going to do the product rule for this piece. 1 times 3 is 3, okay? And then x x to the 4th times x squared is x to the 6th, because you add. And then y to the 4th and y to the 1 is y to the 5th. Okay? So all it is two product rules. And now I look at what I got and see if I can add. Now remember, I can only add if they have the same last name. So x to the 6th, y to the 5th, x to the 6th, y to the 5th, so they do. So now I'm just going to read it from left to right. 8 plus 3 is 11, and then I keep the same last name, x to the 6th, y to the 5th. Now I know what you're probably thinking is, why can't I do 6 plus 6 and 5 plus 5? Because this isn't the product rule. This part right here is adding and subtracting, not the same thing as the product rule. If I was multiplying those two things, then I could do 6 plus 6, 5 plus 5. But this is just adding and subtracting these two monomials, so I keep the same last name. Okay, let's do some more. Number 17, so here's my product rule, and then addition. So I got to take care of product rule first. So on this side, 4 times 5 is 20. Then I look at my a's. A to the 3rd and a to the 1 is a to the 4th. Then b to the 4th, b squared is b to the 6th. Then I look on the right side, so I'm going to add what I get for the right side. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. A squared is a to the 4th. B to the 5th, b to the 1 is b6. Okay? Then I look to see if I can add these two pieces. So since they have the same last name, 20 plus negative 2 is 18. And then keep the same last name. So it's a to the 4th, b to the 6th, okay? 18. There's nothing to multiply on the left side. The product rule is just on the right side. So I'm going to bring this down. 19, m to the 8th, n to the 8th. And now I'm going to subtract whatever I get over here. 4 times 3 is 12. M to the 5th, m to the 3rd is 8. N to the 1, n to the 7 is 8 also, okay? Now I check to see if I can subtract. M8, N8, M8, N8, they are the same. So 19 minus 12 is 7. And I'm going to keep the same last name, okay? 19. Here's the product rule, and then there's the subtraction. So we have to take care of these two sides first. On this side, negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And then c to the 1, c to the 4th is c to the 5th. D to the 1, d to the 1 is d squared, 2, okay? Then on the right side, I'm going to subtract what I get. 7 times 2 is 14. C squared, c cubed is c to the 5th. And there's nothing to add to d because it's the only d on this side, so d squared. So then I look at both sides. They are the same, c to the 5th, d squared. So I'm just going to subtract. 15 minus 14 is 1. And then I keep the same last name, c to the 5th, d squared. Or you'll see it written as c to the 5th, d squared without the 1 in front. Okay, so this is just a mixture of the product rule and what we learned the day before. So you need to be prepared. What we talk about tomorrow is going to include both of those things. So it's just going to keep building and building and building where you're going to see a mixture of all these rules. So we're kind of taking it nice and slow, introducing each rule and then combining them together later.